And welcome back to the hottest marriage show on our street. It is I, John D. and
Kanika.
Back with Doing Too Much podcast to discuss what happens in our house and how we deal with it. And hopefully you can use some of these ideas or suggestions or recommendations and apply it to your life where you can get closer to your spouse and become better parents by communicating to your kids. How are you doing?
I'm great.
Awesome. So we're going to just jump into it. Kanika had an idea of discussing the usage of language. And would you like to start?
Yeah. So picture it. October 2022 in the kitchen. John told me I was lying. And, you know, it's funny that I'm wondering how many people actually even deal with this and understanding the shades of meaning with words. But so we were having a conversation and John said on his way out the room, because you lie all the time. You lie all the time. And I said, no, I don't lie all the time. And he said, well, you've lied before. True enough. I'm an adult. I'm a human. So I have lied before. But when he said I lie all the time, that's not true. And so when I was trying to figure out what he meant, I'm going to be honest with you. He walked out of the room and it made me mad because I'm not a liar. Like, when I say things, I even said this to him. I said, when I say things to you, I am not lying, or at least I don't know that I am. Like, and I don't have a problem going and looking for the information afterward. If you are truly fighting me and saying that what I'm saying is wrong, I'll go look for the information in order to prove I'm right. And if I'm not right, I'll own that. So I feel like when I say things and they end up being not true, I wasn't lying. But what did you say it was?
It's not a truth. It's not the truth. Then it's a lie.
Then it can only be a lie.
Yeah.
But that's not true. So so he leaves, right? And so, you know, now I'm mad. So I'm in the dictionary at this point. And so I'm looking at the word lie. And I'm like, I'm not lying. So what are some of the other synonyms of lie? And it comes to different things about, you know, different words to use. Falsehood, blah, 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 blah. But the important part of the word is, of the definition was that it's something you tell that's not true with the intention to deceive somebody. And so to give me the blanket, like, characteristic of being a liar pissed me off because I don't say the things that I say in order to deceive you. I say it because I honestly believe that that's true. Now, I believe that when you say stuff to me and you say 93% of the time, you're trying to deceive me to make me feel like the majority of the time this is the truth, and you don't.
No, that's incorrect.
Wait.
Because 51% is majority.
No, but what I'm saying is when you used to say the percentages.
Oh yeah, I know, but I feel like.
So then my question is, do you know if it's 51%?
Oh no, whatever I am like talking about. Yes, I know the majority. I just don't know the specific number.
So you're confident that if you looked it up, it would be the majority?
Yes, when I say things, I know it's, yeah, for sure. Like, this is information I know. The reason why I just don't say 51% because you're like, John, it's this or that.
Right. So, so when we're talking and I'm looking up the different things you could say were not true, but it wasn't to deceive you. It was like inaccuracies, you know?
Yes, and that's I learned that day.
Yes. And so what I've learned is when I'm ready to fight John, it's like I'm pulling out my ninja sword. When I'm ready to fight John, I stop talking because nothing good is going to come of that. However, you are going to hear about this situation later. So it was like a couple hours later and he comes into the kitchen and I said, you know, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the use of that word lie because that bothered me. And so he's like, okay, yeah, what? And so I explained to him the whole thing about. Go ahead.
You're gonna explain. Why do you talk like? Well, yeah. What? Like who? I don't do that. You portray me this guy like. I just wanted to understand. Like, I need you to talk about that later, though. But explain.
Okay, so I explained the whole thing about it being. I may have been inaccurate, but I didn't say it with the intention to deceive you or trick you or sway your decision knowing that I was saying something wrong.
Correct.
So,
but I didn't, I learned that day.
And so, yeah. So tell me your take on that experience.
Well, when look, I've always I told you that when people was like, oh, he always lying. Like if you talking about, like if somebody's talking about something they don't know, they're not trying to deceive nobody. Like they just don't know what the hell they talking about. They, you know what I'm saying? And they're like, you always lying. So it's like a untruth. Yeah. So I just gapped anything that was not the truth was going to be a lie. Mm-hmm. So when I heard that, I was like, well, she's probably never lied to me then, that I can recall, with intent. Yeah. So I can say that with intent to deceive. I guess you did that first
in
time.
College.
Yeah.
As a grown up, no, but in the beginning, yeah, I did.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's the difference, though. Like I know that when I knew my intentions, that I did have intentions to deceive in those moments. But yeah, in our everyday interactions, yeah, when you said I always lied, that made me so mad. Like the sword was coming out. We were gonna fight for the rest of the day. But.
So what was so great about that is that I won't use that again. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Because it's kind of pointless. But if I do it, is because it's just out of habit. But it won't come from I'm like John. And I'm like, oh my bad. You know what I'm saying? But I learned so much from that, and I just felt like that was like one of those things that I look forward to in life. Where, damn, I've been using that a lot wrong.
Probably starting a lot of fights and didn't know. But yeah, so I feel like words are power.
They are.
And so that was definitely about to change my mood. And I was like, you know what? We're going to try not to change my mood. I'm going to tell him why he's wrong and give him an alternative term to use. And so, yeah, that was a interesting experience because, people don't want to be called a liar unless they, if you lying. If you said it and you knew what you were saying probably wasn't right, but you did anyway because it fits your purpose.
Yeah.
Versus somebody who is like, I'm convinced that I know I read this somewhere and then you read it wrong. And when you look it up, you be like, oh, you know what? I was wrong.
Yeah.
Now, if you didn't go back, is it the intention to deceive once you figure out that you were wrong and you don't go and correct it?
I think that if you don't make an attempt to fix that wrong, then you're a liar. Because you know now. Mm-hmm. And I don't think if your intent is if you don't think that your voice is that strong, then you shouldn't open your mouth, because now there's possibility that you spread false information. So your job is to go back. Hey, you know what, man? I was wrong on that, because I've done that so many times. It was so crazy because I was doing it I was trying to man, I forgot, man. I just looked this up the other day, man. I try to downplay it, but I was still gave them the information though. So it made me feel like you have to do it or you're a liar, because again, you don't know who took that information and is now going to spread false information from you. So if you are a person that can influence anybody, you should watch what you say out of your mouth, because it could cause problems, miscommunication. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You got any other words you want to discuss?
We're always I'm probably really annoying when it comes to vocabulary and words and things of that nature. I'm sure that I bother you. No, because before, maybe because I'm like, no, you didn't even do it before. You do it more so now because I asked for it though.
Okay. I specifically like to be corrected, because I don't want people to use this little thing and miss the whole message. Like, okay, I'm not good at communicating, but you're going to say I used the word wrong, but what was I trying to give you?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I don't want people to be distracted. So if you can help me communicate in a way where nobody won't be lost from something like, you shouldn't have said that, because you're going to lose this group of people because they're going to look at, he should speak better. He should articulate this way. I get it. Mm-hmm. And that's why I said I want to learn. So I don't have a problem with you correcting me at all. Now, maybe in the moment, it depends on how emotional everything. Yeah. Like, did you choose this time to bring up?
Oh, so now you just gonna say so. It's like when you're in an argument with somebody and they're not gonna win the argument, and so then they zero in on one thing and they just focus on it.
That's what I was cold at.
Oh my God, he was the worst and the best all at the same time. It was horrible fighting with you. But one of the things I know in the moment I was annoying you though. We had a conversation recently, and we were talking about neighborhoods that were displaced because, you know, the city may want to do something like build a factory or a new highway or whatever, and then they displace a community. And so in the conversation, John used a word, established, to describe a community, whether it's an established community or not. And the way in which he was using it wasn't correct. Now, I knew exactly what you were like. I was like, that doesn't make sense. Me understanding the word, I was like, that doesn't make sense. And then when he explained what he meant, I was like, oh, that's not what established means. And I tried to give an alternative definition, and he was like, no, this is what it means. And I was like, actually isn't. He said, but you know what I'm talking about. And so the more he was talking and he kept using this word, I was distracted by the fact that the word did not really fit the conversation. And so because you were using the wrong word, it made it where your argument didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And so it was really bothering me. And so at one point I had to look up the definition. I'm notorious for this. I had to look up the definition, and I read it to him. And I said, do you see how this doesn't make any sense now? And he was like, yeah, but you know what I mean. Now, the problem with that is, and this is the same thing like when I have a cousin that she uses tooken a lot. And it's taken. Now, this is my problem with that. One of my cousins, he was like, but did you know what I meant? He was like, why are you always trying to correct people with the white man's English? That's what he would always say, you know, like, oh, you're so caught up in that. But
it's a valid point.
It is. And I know that it can be annoying, and I try to fix it, but I can't fix it. And this is why. When you leave me, I know what you're talking about. And in that moment, what you were saying didn't make any sense. And so your argument seemed silly to me to even argue with you because you don't even know what you're talking about until I asked you more questions. And when you described what established meant to you, then I was like, okay, so the rest of his argument makes sense. But you may go out into the world and nobody's going to take the time to figure out
Absolutely.
How did you define that? And so that was just like we were having a conversation about equality and equity. And I said, can we level set? Can you tell me what the definitions are for you so I can know what your definitions are? I can understand. And so it's like nobody else. It's very rare that you're going to find somebody who's going to take the time to really understand what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
If they don't care about you like I do. And so I need to make sure that you understand that it's not conveying what you wanted to convey. So when you go out into the world, if you have this argument with somebody else, again, you will not use that word. Because if he used the word established for what he meant, then it would make it seem like his argument had no merit. He didn't even know what he was talking about. And so any points you made that might have been good, nobody's going to get it.
Correct.
And so it really got me. But I know that it can be annoying to people for me to say that. But in my head, I'm always thinking when you go out into the world, when you leave me, and this is even with my cousin, when you leave me and you are out there in the world with people who don't care, they're listening to what you have to say and they're making judgments and decisions on whether or not they want to continue to listen to you, tell people about whether you're intelligent or not, what you understand, you know, these are the things that I want to make sure you're not doing out there. Not that it's important what other people believe, but because your thoughts and ideas and feelings are important, and they can have a really big impact on somebody. But if you use one wrong word, it ruins the entire conversation.
And you know, I think that overall has been my downfall. That's the reason why I stayed in education for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And then, moving up, you can tell that there's a particular language that is expected, and you can speak that way, but one of your words that you use on your everyday with your family or your friends could mess up all of the information or the experience that you got because of what you just said. It was like, oh, what else would he say incorrectly? And I still have that now. That's the reason why I specifically work on just communication, because I feel like, because you're gonna judge me, and it's different levels to the levels of communication, right? But I'm gonna be judged on using the past tense of a word, and like I never took that serious when I was young. Nobody told me how seriously, like that. Using with adjectives, with a
suffix. Is it a suffix?
No, I'm saying using an adjective and adding the "ly." Like, I always forget that. Well, 90% of the time, and I'm very proud of myself when I do catch it, because I'm like, I'm getting it. But like when you just corrected me right there, I'm like, golly, dang! I in my head, the last time I said it, I was like, oh, I'm getting there. I'm got, and then it just says.
Well, now you say I'm supposed to, versus how you used to say it. So it's and I think that that's another one of those things that it comes out of the trauma that I think that we have when we're trying to assimilate or live within the United States and be as vanilla as possible or as flavorless as possible in order to be palatable to everybody.
Yeah.
So it's like I try to take away the uniqueness of how I communicate with my community when I'm communicating with the larger group, so that's not going to be a separator. I can get what I want done in that larger group when I speak in a way that is common to everybody, versus when I speak with my family, like it really wouldn't be a problem when I'm speaking to my friend Lynn. She's a stickler about language sometimes too. Like certain things, we were always like that when we were younger. And so when we're talking to each other and we're just, when I say the English is horrific, but it's like, it's the dialect of our community where we grew up. It's acceptable because we know that when you go out into the world, you're going to speak in a different way. But when you're with us, this is like when you're at home, you can talk however you want. And I know exactly what you're talking about. And even if you're saying ain't or you're saying something, it's fine.
Yeah.
Because I get it. You know what I'm saying? And so
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's one too.
And so it's a part of being hood adjacent. It was funny because John and I were talking and he was like, you are not from the hood. Like, do you think you're from the hood? And I was like, no, I'm hood adjacent. Like my neighborhood, there were families on my street and people owned their houses, but around the corner, there were people renting and there were people whose income wasn't like it was that different. It was that close where you could be on one street and there were people who were making a good amount of money and their families were in a certain position, and you go to the next block and they were struggling. And so there were a lot of things that I learned how to do and that were natural to me because my friends lived on the next street or around the corner and we would hang out on that street. And so I call myself hood adjacent. John wouldn't let me call myself hood, but I was like, well, I'm adjacent. I'm next to it. And so I was able to like mix and mingle versus you. When you're like, nah, like where I lived was like when you describe it, it's an apartment complex, and you know what I'm saying, and
I didn't live in the hood at all.
Yeah, but like you understood that there were just differences. So yeah, hood adjacent, and that's how I like when I'm with my community, depending on who I'm with. Even it's not even just when I'm with white people, I change it up. When I'm with different black people, because the dialect is different depending on who you with. Who you talk, how you talk is different depending on how they grew up and where they live, right? So, yeah, that was just the thing. So with me, because I've had to live adjacent and I've had to like mingle in different areas, I look at how you communicate, because I know you're always working on it, and it used to be a really big struggle. And so when you go out into the world, I want you to be as clear when you're speaking to people as possible. Definitely.
I mean, that's what I want. That's what I said. Like, if people knew how to communicate, we wouldn't have to worry about going into the world, and because everybody, you would know, like, okay, I don't like this, and I like this. Let's go our separate ways. It's not like, why you don't like that, cuz? Not your problem.
But I think that's the important part of having a conversation, whether you're arguing or you're just teaching somebody something. If somebody doesn't understand what you're saying, or they're about to get angry because of something you said, y'all should level set and be like, can you define that for me real quick before you say the rest of what you have to say? Define what you mean by this.
And then, I know. So I'll tell you, like, there's a way that when somebody's saying that, because I'm like, man, define that. So depending on who you're talking to, like, what you trying to say? I don't know what the heck I'm like. So it's like, you have to say it where the person doesn't feel threatened of their intellect.
Can you describe to me?
Because I'm not understanding. I just want to walk with you. Like, so I'm trying.
I want to make sure that we're looking at it the same way.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. I need to work on those things, because I automatically assume people know what they're talking about.
And if what they're saying is off the.
Yeah. So, and then that's where the conflict comes in. So then now I like, okay, what did you mean by this? Because I'm not understanding why you're looking at it that way. Mm-hmm. Because, me and Peanut, we have conversations, and we have some really deep conversations. And when I'm talking to him, he has to, hey, you're making me feel a certain type of way. Why are you yelling? And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, or I'm not trying to, and then it's like because he knows now, like, what I want, and he usually shuts down. Like, if I'm just like, man, you know what I'm like, so then I can't get the best out of him. So him like, hey, just tell me when I'm doing it so I can just chill out and address it in a different way. And it just happened as recent as yesterday. And he was like, you're making me feel a certain type of way. I was like, oh, my bad. Look, no.
What's funny is when you were talking about how you may raise your voice and that's not your intention to make them feel some kind of way. Connie sent me a message where somebody online, Connie's his sister, there's somebody online that posted something and was like, everybody wants to know why we're yelling in our house and we're always fighting. And really, that's just the way we talk. And I remember when I first met your dad and your sister in the same room, and they were yelling at each other.
But they was talking.
They were just talking. Mm-hmm. And I was like, John, your family be like, they were arguing. And you're like, no, they were just talking. And hollering, but they were talking. And so it made it, when I met her, when she came to live with us, it became more apparent to me. That was just my one interaction with them together. But then I was like, okay, so when John is hollering, when he gets amped up, sometimes, and when we have another friend that he talks just as loud.
That's just the way I talk.
Yeah, and so that really taught me something about, just because somebody raises their voice, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're getting upset or anything. It might just be the way that they speak. Well,
it's a lack of communication, because I was just thinking, like, why am I raising my voice? Because it's worked in the past. Like,
it shut other people down.
Yeah, so you remember Glenn was like, John, just because you talking loud don't mean you still know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So that usually just for me, it was sometimes I'd be like, okay, he getting too hype. And I've really been working on not being emotional. I'm trying not to be emotional in the things I say, because that's usually where it sounds like you're just saying it because you want it to be right and not because you feel like it's fact. And so when things get too hot and you may get angry, I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to continue that conversation. And then it almost feels like I'm trying to fight, because I'll be like, you know what, never mind. I'm good.
Yeah, no, it always sounds like you're trying to fight.
Even when I'm trying to stop the fight.
So I will say this. So I've reflected on the different ways that you've tried to stop the fight, and I was like, they've gotten better, but if I'm not controlled, and I'm like, oh, she could have done that better. Like, and that's why I'm evaluating. But at least I know that. But it's less time for me to recover because I'm like, I'm tripping because she only did that because of the way I'm talking. So I'm accepting the accountability, but I'm like, is she really working? She could have said that in a way. Because Peanut yesterday, he was so cold. He was like, hey, are you trying to make me feel like this way? We're like, I'm feeling something. Come on. I'm like, oh, so you can tell that he was like trying to laugh at like, hey, I'm giving you some leverage, like so, some time, some leeway.
Trying to help you not get me mad.
Yeah, because you can hear that little pitch in his voice was like twinging to the like, man, but he was like trying. I was like, okay. So now I'm recognizing like different people. That's how you spend time with them and you listen and find out what their weaknesses are, and you don't keep hitting them where they keep responding that way. You like try to get them to elaborate in a way where they can be most effective. Yeah. Instead of letting their weakness destroy the conversation. Yeah. So I like learning. That's why I said like this way, because to me it just makes me look better when I walk outside. Like I work in here with my wife, and at the end of the day, who's going to communicate with me more than you are? Other than the kids, and that's limited in the grand scheme of things, in as much as we talk. But the people outside is going to get less. So if you give them false information, that's your name. And you want to give the most accurate information as possible before anybody leaves you, or that's your reputation. And depending on how important you want to be, it may not be important. Because somebody's like, oh, he don't care what he's not prepared for that. So I like being checked on things that I think I know, and because it's just a room for growth, and it's less conflict. Do I say? Oh, you mentioned earlier, and I don't think we went into it at all. But you was like, when I used to say I supposed to. But like I used to leave out the I am or I'm supposed to. I used to say I supposed to all the time. There was no M in there. And it used to eat her up. But it used to eat me up because I used to always say it. And it's another thing. I'm trying to think. It was an email, Minds.
Oh, yeah.
So I was a administrator, but I was a very young administrator. I was like 27, and I said Minds, and like a friend of mine's or something like to the extent. And Sania was like, John, don't ever put an S on that again. Using it like that. I was like, what? I've been using it like that my whole life. And you know what's so crazy? Majority of the people I knew use Minds. Like, so when I hear somebody say mine, I look at them immediately and I'm like, oh, okay, so they've come from an environment where that wasn't practiced, Minds wasn't practiced, or somebody corrected it earlier.
Wait, so when you used to talk to people, even before Sania corrected you, and somebody said mine, did you feel like they were saying it incorrectly?
I never heard mine. Yeah, it went over my head. Oh. It didn't sound different. I always said mines. So I never waited for the S, but it was always with me when I said it.
It was always with me.
It was always
in my pocket.
But, so I definitely, I know people that use the mines. And you know what's so crazy? Correcting your friends with it. It was like, you know what I mean? And yeah, I do. Yeah. But again, I'm trying to give them that information too. That's why I enjoy growing with you.
Oh, he's growing, man.
I am. I like that. Look, I'm going to have to put that in my next clip. She said, I'm growing, man.
Yeah, he is. So, I guess we're only talking about what established and what was it? Lie. And, but I guess it could be for anything. I think the biggest thing that I guess I'm trying to get across is that the way you use your words can make a really big difference in whether or not somebody gets mad or not. And for the person who's receiving the message, if you feel like you're about to get mad, maybe you should just be like, can you just help me understand how you're using this word so that I'm with you on what you mean? Because the way I define it, or the way I understand it, this doesn't make sense, or it sounds like you mean this.
Yeah. I mean, like, African American colloquialisms are really it's so large. I just remember when rap music came out and you started learning how different people around different parts of the country spoke. And just for example, I remember when somebody was like, "Yeah, I mean," and if you never heard that before, I was like, "What the heck?" Like, it's what I mean, and I'm like, if you've never heard that, you have no idea what that means, like when somebody says that. And I was just thinking about every different place has their own whatever, even neighborhoods, or just the usage of like a vocabulary word. Like, let's just use game. Like, you always playing games and like, my parents never bought me a video game system. And it's like, what are you talking about? And it's like, how are you using this word? And he got game. What does that mean? So it's like you have to ask somebody some context, or you're going to just use your own experience and hope that you guys are talking about the same thing. But I was just thinking, there are so many different English words that we're trying to understand that it's being used differently, that's causing these conflicts. And I don't know when or ever in our lifetime where I guess the conflict will reduce to the point where, like, let's stop. Like, you and I just like, okay, what are we doing? Like, are we still on the same team? Are we still humans right now? Like, are we trying to take advantage of one another? Like, is that the goal? Like, I'm trying to really trick you so I can take your cookies, or are you trying to trick me? So it's like, no, let's just eat them together.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's go order cookies. Yeah.
No doubt. But anybody you want to give a shout out before we get out of here?
Anybody that says mines.
Mines. That's mines. Mines.
Serious mines.
Mines. So yeah, and that is with any group of people says mines. Like, yes. I don't want to. It's not just black people.
Oh yeah,
like,
no, I've heard. No. Yeah, I think that could go across to anybody, but yeah.
I mean, if you heard somebody say it in that, and you like, oh, I was saying it wrong, and then you start saying it. See, that's a lie to me. I was like, man, why are you lying to these people, talking to them like that? Now this person walked around thinking it's supposed to say mines.
Oh my God.
No, but I want to give a shout out to anybody, again, that's working on themselves and taking a safe way home, because it is a dangerous route, always away from your destination if you're not paying attention. Y'all make today better than yesterday. Don't worry about anything you can't control. Be great on purpose. Boom.